Good afternoon. Welcome to the weekly livestock market update, the final one for 2022. I'm Brownfield anchor reporter Megan Grebner. With us, as always, to talk all things markets, University of Missouri, Scott Brown. Good afternoon, Scott.
Good afternoon, Megan.
Technology is not exactly being friendly today, so hopefully everything is running the way it's supposed to on our end. And really not a big day today or big week in terms of reports. It's not really been an active week for much of anything. It's kind of like everybody's skating into the new year at this point, except for you and I.
That's right. And I assumed you were going to be celebrating National Bacon Day today as well. So there is some good news here.
Is it really?
I think it is today.
That's pretty impressive. I did not have bacon today at all. I'll have to fix that and in the evening. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit demand. We're going to take a look back quickly at the top story that we think of 2022 and what we're watching as we look ahead to 2023. And then we're out of here. But to kick things off, let's recap what happened this week in the markets.
Yeah, Megan, this week in cattle markets, those fed ready cattle were 215 higher for the week. We really didn't get a test feeder cattle markets just given the holiday activity going on this week. There wasn't many of those feeder cattle auctions up and going. On the future side, February live cattle futures were up 15 cents, and the January feeder cattle contract was actually down 45 cents on the week. We got some strength in that choice box beef price this week. It was up $13.90 on what was strength across the board in all of those components. So a strong week on the beef side. Perhaps we're beginning to see just a little bit of some tighter supplies. And I will say cattle slaughter being so low the last couple of weeks as well, I think has tightened box beef up a little bit as well. On the hog side, cash barrels and gilts were 275 higher this week. The February lean hog futures contract was basically unchanged, up a nickel on the week. The pork cutout value gained $3.15, and that was strength across the board in everything but picnics on the pork cutout value.
I think it's interesting. We're going to talk slaughter numbers. Last week was very slow. Cold weather had a lot to do with that. The holidays had a lot to do with that. Down even more on the beef side of things this week.
Yeah, that's right. So for the week ending December 31st, USDA is calling for a cattle run of 547,000 head. That's down another 15,000 head from where we were a week ago. However, it is up 23,000 from a year ago. So it just reminds us of that holiday shortened activity going on the cattle side. On hogs, we gained this week a run of 2.186 million head, according to USDA. That's up 404,000 head from a week ago and 32,000 head more than where we were a year ago.
Demand is our focus today. We're going to talk a little restaurant performance index. Scott, oh, you know what? I jumped ahead just a little bit. Sorry. I was just really excited to talk about demand. We've been looking here. I have been off for a week. I'm still in vacation mode.
We'll get back in the groove.
It'll all click in a couple of weeks. So as we've been talking year to date, cattle slaughter and hog slaughter, talk to me about how those numbers are going to finish up 2022 in comparison to 2021.
Yeah, so when you look at what we have in terms of weekly slaughter for the year, 1.7% more cattle being slaughtered versus 2021. And we lost 2.6% in terms of hog slaughter relative to 2021.
Are you surprised to see where we ended up in comparison to where we were a year ago?
Not so much on the hog side of the equation. That was all anticipated with some turn down in breeding inventory, et cetera. However, we ended up with more cattle slaughter than maybe I would have thought going into this year. And I think it just reminds us that as we slaughtered more cows, slaughtered more heifers, that really is what drove us to be up 1.7% in overall cattle slaughter for the year.
I do not think we will have that same story in 2023.
I don't either. If we do, we are going to have very few cattle left in this country.
All right, let's talk demand now. Restaurant performance index. Talk to me about the numbers for November.
Yeah, so for the first time in 4 months, we actually saw a decline in the November restaurant performance index. It was down 0.8% at an index of 101.1 for November. Now, that was really driven by what was a weaker current situation index. It was down about 1.5% relative to October. Same store sales, customer traffic, those were a couple of things that were actually lower that contributed to the results that we got. When you look at the expectations piece of the restaurant performance index, it was down just slightly from October to November. So current situation is really what drove us lower for this November restaurant performance index.
How much of that has to do with, or do the holidays have any implication or any influence on where those numbers go when we think about the restaurant performance index overall?
So I guess, Megan, maybe indirectly, certainly as consumers are making choices about, what to purchase with what might be a more limited money in their wallets, if you will, could have some impact. But by and large, I think it's much more just some weakness happening in November as some more fears about the economy slowing down continue to be front and center.
All right. As we look back, we are the last 36 hours of 2022. What would you say on the livestock side of things would be your top story and the biggest impact and influential factor into the livestock markets for this year?
Yeah, I think hands down, this is probably a pretty easy winner to talk about drought. And, we can start on the cattle side of the equation and just talk about, how much liquidation we've seen during 2022 in terms of beef cow slaughter as well as heifer slaughter, being the big picture. But I would remind us as well that it's kept feed costs in general higher. It's affected all of these livestock industries as they've had to deal with near record feed prices. And I think that's really what's setting the stage when you look back at 2022.
One of somebody who's watching us live on Facebook said beef prices, and I would assume that would obviously tie into everything that kind of comes back to drought and all of those things that we're touching on there as well.
Yeah, for sure, Megan. And I would say, it's really the prices we're going to see in 2023 could be the exciting ones. Again, I'm a little hesitant to get overly excited, but I think we're going to have higher prices in 2023. We've talked about this a few times. When you look back at other periods like 1979 or 2014, when we saw 20% higher fed cattle prices with similar reductions in beef production that we expect for 2023, I think there's where there could be some fireworks coming. Of course, there's still some risk here with the general economy, I think.
So as you look ahead to 2023, your cloudy, cracked crystal ball that we all look into, what is going to be the number one story or the one thing you're watching in this coming year?
Yeah, so I do think it's consumer behavior and general economy, going forward. We've just come through what's been a really good run of demand for beef and pork, both. And if the general economy slows, as many are predicting, and perhaps we do have a modest recession in 2023, how does that change consumer buying habits when it comes to beef and pork? I guess that's the one that I'm watching the most right now.
Scott, anything else? Any other things you're watching for in 2023?
Well, I will say, I think we can say drought yet again. It's certainly dry, not a lot of subsoil moisture. We don't know what we're going to get in those pastures in terms of recovery in 2023. We don't know what we're going to get in terms of a corn crop in the United States here in 2023. Let's just hope it's better growing weather and better weather general for both pasture as well as row crops as well.
So I'm going to throw a listener viewer question at you real quick. What are your thoughts and your projection thinking about calf crop in 2024 as you look ahead?
Yes, that's a good question. I think that 2024 calf crop gets even smaller than the 2023 calf crop. I guess right now I'm not expecting a quick turnaround in terms of beef cow inventory. Not the same kind of cut that we'll see in the 2023 calf crop, given what I've seen in terms of cow slaughter and heifer slaughter here in 2022. But we could go through 2024 and frankly into 2025 before beginning to see some signs of rebuilding of the cow herd. And so those calf crops, I think, keep getting smaller here for the next couple of years.
Does that also put our production down some as well when we think about overall, because we're going to have to start to hold back and not continue to drop heifers in and place them as well?
Yeah, so the flip side is going to happen here. Just as I think the story in 2022 right away became, hey, we're going to be short cattle. And we really haven't been short cattle yet. Steer slaughter down, but heifer and beef cow slaughter being up helped overall beef supplies. The flip side will happen as well when we start to talk about building herds. We'll reduce beef cow slaughter, holding those cows a little bit longer, and we'll hold some more heifers back, trying to build the herd as well. So we'll consume, if you will, from current production when we try to rebuild the herd.
Scott, guess what? We get to kick off the new year in person.
That's right. I will see you in Missouri next week.
I will be there with bells on.
That sounds great, Megan.
In addition to what all we will talk about, so just a heads up for those who are listening and viewing us, we will have a later release for the weekly livestock market update newsletter that comes out on Saturday morning. It'll come out later in the day because we'll be live in person on stage on Saturday. And then we'll just have we'll just be a little bit delayed next week, but all with good intention. So we're going to talk jobs report. We'll talk monthly trade data as well. Anything else on your radar for our in-person weekly livestock market update?
I think we'll get to spend a lot of time just talking about cattle markets in 2023, Megan, don't you?
I agree. I look forward to it.
Have a happy new year.
Happy New Year to you as well, and to all of our listeners and viewers. We can't do this without you, and here's hoping it is a great one in 2023. To have our weekly livestock market update delivered your email box every Saturday morning, go to brownfieldagnews.com. You can click subscribe. You can also submit questions and comments, or if you're watching us live on Facebook, do it there as well, and we can ask those questions to Scott on the fly. And if you want to see what's going on with the markets daily, check out John Perkins' Market Minute. Have a great weekend. Have a happy new year. I'm Megan Grabner for Brownfield.